Here are the headlines for today. A Florida mother was shot during the funeral for her son who had been shot and killed by police. Let's first take this back. We've been following the story of the two black teens shot and killed by a Brevard County Sheriff's deputy during an attempted traffic stop on November 13th. The teens' names are Sincere Pierce and A.J. Crooms, and this was the burial service for Sincere Pierce. It was interrupted by gunfire that hit his mother. Friends and family were gathered Saturday at Riverview Memorial Garden Cemetery outside of Orlando. Again, they were there to pay their final respects to Sincere. The pastor had finished closing remarks and flowers were being placed onto Pierce's casket when the single gunshot threw the 50 mourners into a frenzy. Florida Today reporters say Quashada Pierce was heard yelling as people ran to their cars and others stayed to help her. The Brevard County Sheriff's Office says Pierce's injury is non-life-threatening. We are told, though, Quashada was hit in the leg by a single gunshot from what the Sheriff's Office is calling an accidental discharge of a concealed weapon.
I miss that smile, miss him. He took my son's life. He didn't even make it to 21. It's
Oh, here's a little more of a refresher on the story for our soulmates. On November 13th, deputies Jafet Santiago Miranda and Carson Hendren say they were investigating a car they believed might have been stolen and had fled an attempted traffic stop. Dashcam video released by authorities showed the deputies following the car the two teens were in. When that car pulled into a driveway, officers got out of their cruiser with guns drawn. Santiago Miranda began yelling, "Stop the vehicle," and eventually fired multiple shots into the car as it continued moving, killing the teens. So again, police are saying this is an accidental gunshot. They say a 16-year-old actually had the gun concealed on his body, and it accidentally discharged, actually went through his leg and then hit her. And, Roman, we were kind of talking about the fact they also say, by the way, the 16-year-old is not being cooperative. That's what the police are saying right now. But this woman is mourning her son, and now she's also recovering from a gunshot wound.
Why would you have a gun?
Buying just to kind of replace a sense of need or
retail
happiness.
Therapy.
Yeah, retail therapy.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Some people, it also kind of highlights the disparities, right? Some people are still doing really, really well right now, and some people are doing even better. Billionaires have made so much money in this time period when people are struggling to pay their rent and figuring out how to put food on the table.
That's
and you're right,
point.
Melissa. I think sometimes people try to figure out whatever they can control.
Yeah.
So they're doing something nice for their kids, trying to scrape and scrape together to make sure they can do something for Christmas, which is coming up, and taking advantage of a sale, even though they don't know where they're going to be having Christmas.
Right.
I think,
But then when it ended, real life kicked in, and $245 a week does absolutely nothing.
nobody can live on that.
No.
Absolutely.
I'm
Below
glad
the
you
poverty
shared that
level,
because
for sure.
it's a part of the process of normalizing normal life.
Yeah.
This country shames people who are doing their best with whatever they have. And it's good that, doing our part to just normalize it. I want to bring in our guests now. Actually, Lakeisha Poole and Michael Delaflor Monte are co-founders of the Black Virtual Career Fair. They're here to talk about the job fair and share some potential career opportunities with our soulmates. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. First up, Lakeisha, tell me about the Black Virtual Career Fair and why it's been so important for you all to help people find jobs during this pandemic.
Well, it's been really important because we've learned.
Can you tell me about some job opportunities that are out there nationwide right now? That's what everyone's waiting for,
Well, I can tell you it's interesting. Over the last course of the last 9 months or so, African Americans in particular lost jobs in tech fields. We also lost jobs in healthcare. Think of all the people that didn't go to their Black doctors, that stayed away from the hospitals and neglected a lot of those things. When you stay away, you're actually taking money out of the pockets of our Black people in healthcare. So we have a healthcare fair coming up in February 18th, as a matter of fact, to address.
Hey there, welcome back to the Black Report on Fox Soul, your daily source for news, views, and opinions. If you're just tuning in, here's what you've missed. A mother in Florida was shot while mourning her son at his funeral. Police say an Oregon man murdered a Black teen after a confrontation over loud music. Janet Yellen and Adewale Adeyemo would be part of a history-making duo at the Treasury Department. Senator Chuck Schumer wants hearings for Biden cabinet picks to start before the inauguration. Hospitals brace for another COVID-19 surge. Millions of Americans expect to lose their homes, and landlords are evicting tenants despite an order halting evictions. Unemployment benefits fell below the poverty line in 13 states. Lakeisha Poole and Michael Del Flormonte gave our Soulmates info on some potential career opportunities and the Black Virtual Career Fair. To get the full scoop, download the Fox Soul app to watch today's The Black Report. We are also available on Roku, Apple TV, YouTube, Samsung, and Fire TV. What's next from you?
For the first time, two dictionary companies on Monday, Merriam-Webster and Dictionary.com, declared the same word as their top word. Can you guess what that is?
Pandemic.
You're right. The word is pandemic. Pandemic.
With you this first time. Thank you so much.
All right.
We're glad to have you. All right. The Poor People's Campaign recently released a study called Unleashing the Power of Poor and Low-Income Americans, Changing the Political Landscape. I wanted to ask you if you could, one, of course, tell us about the study, but also why so much of your ministry is focused on low-income Americans. Why is that important to you?
Well, let me start first with the ministry aspect of it. And we need to know that in the Bible, there are more than 2,000 scriptures that talk about how we should be focused on the poor, the least of these, the sick, and those at the margin. It is the number one sin in the Bible to disregard the poor, second only to the sin of idolatry and self-worship. So there's no way to be a person of faith and not to be declaring good news for the protokos, though in Greek it's protokos, those who've been made poor because of economic exploitation. In America, currently before COVID, there was 140 million poor and low wealth people. Now understand, when we hear most people say the level of poverty is this, they're talking about the 55-year-old poverty measurement that was bad when it was first established. The actual numbers are 140 million poor and low wealth people before COVID, 60.9% of Black people, 26 million people, 30% of white people, 66 million white people. Before COVID, 62 million people worked every day for less than a living wage. We had over 87 million people either uninsured or underinsured, while every congressperson and the president gets public health care, free health care paid for by the people. So the reality is we have have this inequality, and then COVID hit. And since COVID, 8 million more people have been added to poverty, and COVID is hitting mostly poor and low wealth workers, those who work face-to-face jobs. They're getting hit the most and are dying the most. So there's no way we can talk in this moment without addressing poverty. Now, what our study shows is that today in this nation, poor people make up 1/3 of the electorate, 64 million people. And in the last election, 29 million voted. In this election, about 6 million more voted. We contacted over 2 million who didn't often vote this time, because people are starting to say, wait a minute, we cannot have politicians that are ignoring 50% of the country that's in poverty and low wealth, over 50% of our children, and over 1/3 of the electorate. And the only place to really change this country politically is among the poor. 15 states, if poor and low wealth people vote between 1% and 19%, higher than they did in 2016, they decide who's in the Senate, they decide who's in the presidency. Even in Georgia, right now, 32% of the electorate in Georgia is Black, but there are also over 5 million poor and low wealth people. There are 1 million people uninsured. That's where the power is to galvanize a fusion movement that can change the course of the United States Senate and thereby the course of the country.
Man, we are getting the facts from Reverend Barber here on The Black Report.